Canadian Matt. This is American Matt.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking about Tekken 7.
Yeah.
All right, Matt. What's your history with Tekken, real quick?
Played Tekken 3 quite a bit, though I never owned it on PlayStation 1. Mm-hmm. After Tekken 3, I took a very long hiatus until Tekken Tag Tournament 2, which I was playing at the same time as Soul Calibur 4, so it didn't get a whole lot of playtime. It was very secondary because I've just been drawn to Soul Calibur much more strongly than Tekken. I enjoy the flow of combos a lot better in Soul Calibur. I just think they look better. I was never into like the air juggling in Tekken, so it just kind of took a back seat.
Yeah,
so
I think Tekken looks a bit more like the combos in Tekken always felt more like memorizing math like combinations and formulas, whereas I felt like what I liked about, say, Virtual Fighter and Street Fighter is that it felt a little bit more organic. You know, to me, when I think of Tekken, it's always memorize the 10-hit combo and just input it in exactly, and it's always going to look the same.
And you know what? While you were on that point, let me just go ahead and jump ahead and say one of the two huge differences in Tekken 7 that I appreciate so much that change up the game in a huge way is one, instead for the past few Tekken entries, there's been this mechanic called bounding, these bound attacks that basically allow you to kind of like keep bouncing your opponent off the ground and like go back in for more hits and more juggles. And if you were a veteran player, you could take advantage really of players who are newer and don't necessarily know what they're doing and just keep these incredibly long combos going, and it could be infuriating. The bound mechanic has been replaced with what they're calling screw attacks in Tekken 7, and it's the same concept there. It's this, when you launch a character up in the air, they'll kind of twist, and you can kind of catch them in the air to do these juggles. But the juggling, the combos allowed are not quite as long, and you can't chain them into wall combos. So it shortens really what you can do as far as keeping people bouncing, especially when you're near the edge of a map. And also the damage scaling has been amped up quite a bit. So, a 10-hit combo is not necessarily going to get you a lot more damage than a 5-hit combo will. So the people who've been playing Tekken since the original and have these 10-hit combos down for like 4 or 5 games past, like there's a huge community that's going to pick up Tekken 7, and because the combos for the most part carry over, they're going to pick up, Heihachi or Leo, and they're going to know those 10-hit combos. They're going to hop online and just get ready to dominate. But the really long combos now aren't going to do you huge favors. You're better off thinking more like a fighter and rethinking your strategy to kind of exploit enemy weaknesses and openings and go for a more creative offense where you attack in spurts more frequently as opposed to just trying to find that one same launch so that you can go into those same 2 or 3 really long combos. And that's going to change things, I think, in a really positive way, especially for newcomers and returning laymen like me and maybe like you, people who have experience with the series but were never really hardcore players and never memorized the frames and memorized all the 10-hit combos. For us coming back into this historied community, it can be very intimidating. But the screw attacks and the new damage scaling is going to be really helpful. They also have this thing called a power crush, which is basically like the focus attacks in Street Fighter 4, where you kind of like pose and you can absorb a few blows and then launch a counter. I'm still unsure how I feel about that because I don't know how the online community is going to use it yet. I'm afraid that there might be a total knee-jerk adaptation from the community at large where people start playing hyper defensively and just trying to absorb and counter nonstop.
Right.
Unfortunately, at high levels, that's what the AI does. It just is almost a constant absorb and counter. Yeah, it gets very annoying. At high levels, I had to tone my difficulty down because at the later stages, I felt like I need to start spamming throws to get anywhere because they were just countering nonstop. But yeah, I mean, that could, as the community adapts and then learns how to adjust their offense, which they're going to have to do anyway, it could turn out okay. So yeah, as far as gameplay goes, it's more accessible than ever.
Are there timing based combos in a way like Dead or Alive where you're hitting not combo, counter, or like Street Fighter 3, is it sort of a parry, or is it just that one style that you mentioned where you're absorbing and then lashing back out?
Yeah, certain characters do have the more, time and frame sensitive counters where you're kind of like catching hits to go into like a quick grapple counter and stuff like that. Depends on who you're playing as. It's not across the board. That's from character to character. If it's in their moveset, then yes, there are those kinds of counters. But the Power Crush is kind of across the board. That's a new mechanic in the game that everybody will be able to, hold those, whatever the Power Crush is for their character. They'll just kind of be able to hold that pose and absorb a few blows and counter back. And there is a bit of timing involved in that as well. I mean, you can't absorb blows indefinitely, obviously, and if you let go too soon to try to counter too soon while your opponent is still in the middle of a combo, you're going to get clocked. So it's not just like a catch. It's not a total safe zone where you can just absorb anything until you're ready to hit back. But it is very useful. So we'll see. That might actually, they probably intended that to be useful for new players,
right,
to kind of counter the really combo happy veterans. But it may end up, once the veterans really get the hang of countering and taking advantage of the Power Crush, that could work against them too. So we'll see.
Yeah, it sounds like it has a pretty drastic impact and could really slow the game down and turn it into, I mean, if you make defense really strong, that could be kind of a risky thing for a fighting game. It seems like to me, it's like with sports. You want to see those eras in sports when it's good to be offensive. I mean, we're watching hockey right now is in the playoffs, and I mean, who wants to, like, a defensive strategy may be really successful, but we want to see the high flying offense, right? So it's all right. Yeah, that's. I always thought of Tekken as a very offensive flurry game. Loading up those combos. I do, like you had said, I do like that they are rewarding more of the spurts, and because when you think of, say, like Marvel versus Capcom, you think of somebody making a mistake and then bam, 3 bars worth of a double, triple team super 300 hit combo and you're dead. So you don't want to, because again, that has you playing on eggshells. You want to reward people for, it's like with Bloodborne. I have so many examples here. It's like with Bloodborne, how they rewarded you for going back and getting your health back from attacking right away. So it's, all right. So a couple big changes. How's the game look?
It looks good. My first few hours, I don't know why. In my first few hours, I was not impressed. It looked like there was some terrible aliasing and things were jaggy and some textures were blurry and character faces were kind of blurry. I'm not sure if I've gotten used to it or if my expectations were just absurdly high or if a patch actually sharpened things up a little bit. I'm not exactly sure. Like right now, I think it looks really great. But I remember my first hour, I was very disappointed. But the stages look fantastic, and coming away from my kind of total, my accumulated gameplay experience, I come away saying the game looks fantastic and the cutscenes look fantastic. So the exact same evolution of opinion happened with the story mode as well. This game has a very ambitious story mode, and people were looking for Tekken 7 to finally close the curtain on the decades-long Mishima family drama of father and son, and Kazuya versus Heihachi Mishima, and it's been going on for so long, and this was supposed to end it all. It was this epic final showdown, and how's it going to turn out? The story mode starts off terribly. It's very boring. It's told from the perspective of this journalist in these kind of still illustrated pictures with this journalist who narrates everything like this in a very dreamy kind of hum that it sounds
it's like Keanu Reeves in Interview with the Vampire.
It's worse than that. It is it seems intentionally lulling. It's so strangely.
I wonder if that's a localization problem.
I don't know if like maybe the voice actor was like maybe giving it some personality, and they're like, tone that down. We want this to be as vanilla as possible. It seriously seems like they were making an effort to make him as boring as possible. It's so weird. And I hate it for like 8 chapters of story. I was like, this sucks. Especially coming off Injustice 2, which the story mode campaign was so
impressive.
Incredible. Yeah, I mean, one of the best. But the final chapters where things actually, they should have just included the final chapters, honestly. I mean,
Wow.
the last hour and a half of the game is like huge bombshells. You find out huge secrets about Heihachi and Kazuya and Kazuya's mom, Kazumi, I think is her name. Like, for the last like hour and a half, the Mishima family history is like blown open with these big plot twists.
Wow.
And it ends with one, I won't say
spoiler
who, but one of the two like definitely wins. And if a lot of longtime fans can probably guess how it ends, things kind of come back full circle in a way that's probably a spoiler in itself. But
okay.
You never know with Tekken. And Jin, Jin is Heihachi's grandson, Kazuya's son, and he finds special significance at the end of the story as well that suggests that there will be a Tekken 8. So there's very interesting closure, really great story evolution finally, and then a decent cliffhanger. No pun intended. You'll see what I mean. And it's told in a really sloppy way. The story's inconsistent, but it ramps up nicely at the end. So that was good.
I wonder. It almost sounds like they started with the end, the parts that were really good, and then they thought, oh, we better flesh this out or make it a bit longer. I haven't followed a Tekken game since Tekken 3. And those were your typical 90s fighter philosophy of win 10 matches with the character, here's a little cutscene.
Exactly.
And a lot of them were sort of tongue-in-cheek or some were a bit serious. I always liked that. Actually, the best part about Tekken 3 was that every time you went through the story mode with one character, you unlocked another character, which was pretty cool. But this is more like DC Universe style or in what's the fighting game called? DC
Injustice 2.
Yeah, Injustice 2. Is this that style where you play the characters they tell you so you can act out the scenes?
Yeah, and you know what? You play as a very small number of characters through the story. You mainly play as Heihachi throughout most of the campaign.
Okay.
But there's the main story campaign that you play through, and then there's like a separate section of side story campaigns with a bunch of different characters from the roster, and those are like single fight little stories. You're given an intro leading up to a battle between these two characters. You play the battle, and then there's a little usually hilarious and very tongue-in-cheek cutscene afterward. Those are very charming. I had some like genuine laugh out loud moments from playing those side stories, and there's a bunch of those, and those are a lot of fun. And let me tell you, this is the ultimate love letter to longtime Tekken fans. There's a gallery mode where you can unlock every single cinematic and commercial for every single Tekken game ever.
Wow.
Including the cinematics that were included like in the slot machines and stuff like that. Like everything is there.
Wow.
I immediately went to Tekken 3 and unlocked or it was actually already unlocked, a preview that was on like an old PlayStation demo disc that I used to wear out for Tekken 3.
Right.
And it brought back so many memories, and having that huge collection of Tekken lore and cutscenes at your fingertips. And I mean, like, from those Tekken games where you play through arcade and see every character's ending, they're all there. They're all there. And they also have a jukebox with every track from every soundtrack for every Tekken game. And you can like mix and match the tunes to make a playlist to play in the background while you're navigating menus and fights and stuff like that. Just really, really great fan service. That they put a lot of work into making sure that this was like the ultimate Tekken for longtime fans. I mean, you have all the boons that the new game offers, and then just a treasure trove of classic Tekken goodness to unlock. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, when you see these games that have such a long history, and it's nice to see them turn into a platform and draw on that and reward the old fans. You saw with Mario Kart right around the Wii version where they started bringing back all those old tracks and building on that legacy that they had. It's there. You might as well use it. So yeah, that's really nice to see. I mean, especially in that point, like with Mario Kart 8, you would look back. Well, when they would recreate those old tracks, they had to recreate them from scratch, and it was pretty mind-blowing. But if you're just putting a bunch of like compressed videos from like the PlayStation 1 era, like why not? They're small. It's not like somebody's paid them billions to license that material. I mean, nobody else really cares to watch what happens when Gunjack gets to the end of a story mode, so you might as well let a Tekken fan do it.
Yeah.
So overall, from what you've played so far. Have you are you done with this? Are you midway through review, or you're completed with your time with this game?
I finished the review. I made it all the way through the story. I went through a bunch of side stories. I played online for a few matches. Online was not as populated as I hoped it would be. It was totally dead over the weekend. I think most reviewers got their codes yesterday. I saw quite a few reviews in progress today. Bandai Namco is really kind to us and got us a few copies on last Friday, so I had the entire weekend to spend with it, and then up to today. So it was I was lucky to get the game as early as I did, but unfortunately the servers were not. They were online, but nobody was there until yesterday. So I snuck in a bunch of online matches yesterday to make sure I tried that out.
Yeah.
Made sure to tinker with all the customization options. I delved deep into everything I could, and outside of just spending the dozens of hours that it will inevitably take to master a character to get into the nitty-gritty details of what's evolved in the gameplay, I got a really comprehensive look at everything, and I can say with confidence that anybody's $60 is very well spent here, and that you get a ton for your money.
Yeah.
And even if you're brand new, if you've never played a Tekken game, the story mode has an easy mode where they tie two really good combos to the square and the triangle button, so you can just tap square, triangle, and it'll do like two basic really good combos for you. And they also have special moves tied to that. You can hold the left bumper, left shoulder button, and then press a face button. And each face button will do a special move or like a 2 or 3 hit combo. So they even went that far where you can literally just push buttons if you toggle the easy mode to get through the story and enjoy versus AI battles, and you have all the tools and training and stuff that you need to get really, really good. It's a fantastic package. It is what Tekken fans have been waiting for.
So Tekken fans should be happy, and maybe the mainstream fans can hop in there, because I always viewed Tekken as when it came out, it was kind of like the new 3D fighter on the block. I felt like it brought in a lot of other people because it had it felt like simplified controls. Although Virtua Fighter did a really good job just having the 3 buttons, but there was something about Tekken that felt like it was very simple to understand, and a lot of the moves were similar. So, you think the mainstream? Well, who's to say if they will come in? But do you think that they'll find something here? Yeah,
Tekken is a technical fighting game. I mean, if you're going to try to compete online at all, it takes patience and a lot of practice. So there's definitely a very high skill ceiling, but the barrier to entry has been lowered significantly because of these kind of easy mode options that they've given you, where you can fight against the AI and you can see the timing of what your character is supposed to be doing, and the practice mode is comprehensive, to say the least. It really gives you all the tools that you need. So you're not going to hop in.
How about this question? What game would be better for a noob who would not consider themselves a fighting game expert at all? This or Injustice 2? Injustice 2,
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, Injustice 2 is you require a lot less input to look like a total badass. Tekken, you really got to work to pull off the cool stuff and to hold your own against the competition, especially. Injustice 2, you can hop online and get lucky, not against the truly great players, but if you're matchmaking with people, even on your skill level as a new player, you're gonna do fine and you're gonna have fun and look cool. And pull off combos that look impressive, even if you don't mean to. But with Tekken, it's a little more prohibitive, but it definitely has a richer complexity because of that. It takes a little more practice.
All right. You can go read Matt's review at wwg.com/gaming.
comicbook.com/gaming. Yeah, right. That's the home of WWG right now. It's been a confusing couple of weeks.
What's the easiest way to Google search it? Matthew Hayes Tekken review.
Yeah, you can just search Tekken 7 review with comic book, one word, and quotation marks. It'll be the first thing to pop up. It might pop up anyway if you just type in Tekken 7 review, but it's there on comicbook.com/gaming, and that's where I am all week long.
Excellent. Well, I've been playing a much older game. I've been playing several older games. I got back into Final Fantasy XIII. I'd given it a bit of a run 2 years ago, because I was at some game store where the guy says, "Oh, you want to buy one PS3 game? Is this much? Hey, you want to buy three for 10, four for 5?" And there was these crazy deals. So I thought Final Fantasy, and Final Fantasy XIII came out at a time when I was taking a big grape from games, a big juicy purple grape, and I had no reason to buy it.
Wow.
Yeah,
that was a great recovery, actually.
So I didn't know anything about it when I brought it home, and I think the last Final Fantasy I had played before that was 7. So I'm like, oh, this should be great. And
before you even get into details about Final Fantasy XIII, can I just ask you, is this the joke that everybody makes it out to be? Is it as terrible and awful as everybody? I mean, people just crap on this game openly, even hardcore Final Fantasy fans. Does it merit that?
It's, in some elements, yes. And it's so different. It's so different from other Final Fantasies is the big problem. The biggest thing with this game is that you run down a long corridor for about 15 or 20 hours. Where it's just straight, and your only path choices are, you can kind of explore little nooks here and there, and there'll almost always be an item box, just this floating circle orb thing that opens up. There's no real rhyme or reason for it to be there, or there'll be some enemies. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest problem people had with this. The second problem is that the story is very needlessly convoluted. If you look at the basics of the story, you have this ragtag group that are trying to avoid being turned into monsters by a god. And so they're running away from... You've got the good world, Cocoon, and you got Pulse, the one below. They're all in the good world. And then every once in a while, these gods come up and they brand people. And they say, you've got the mark. And what'll happen is either you have to fulfill this destiny and turn into crystal forever, or you turn into a zombie if you don't fulfill the destiny. So what the good guys up in Cocoon do, they're kind of like the good guys, they will ship them all into this train, and they just send them back down to the crappy world below. And, like that whole idea of, the rich people on top and the poor on the bottom, and thinking of the bottom as like, they tell people like, it's hell down there. You'd never want to go down there. And eventually you end up there and it's like lush and green. I mean, it's filled with monsters, but it's actually nice. Whereas Cocoon is more like, like a Blade Runner to the max, like George Lucas prequels, floating city, Fifth Element style. There's so much going on. So you end up just running constantly away. So it kind of makes sense for you to be in this corridor, because you're running away and running towards trying to find Lightning's sister, who also happens to be Snow's fiance. And Snow, played by Troy Baker, is so douchey. And he's got this black bandana and a scarf, but he's played very tongue-in-cheek goofy. He wants to be the hero, but he's just he ends up getting this volunteering. He makes these people volunteer to fight in this rebellion. And this is right in the beginning of the game. And this mom gets up and volunteers, and her little kid's there. He's like 13 or something, prepubescent. And he's worried, but she looks at him or to Snow, and she says the famous line, moms are tough. And she ends up dying like very quickly after. This kid that is now orphaned keeps kind of having to tag along, but Snow is so like oblivious to it. He's like, don't worry, kid, we'll get you home for dinner. And you're thinking like, to who? The mom's dead. It's going to eat by her dead carcass. But where it falls apart is that even that explanation was very, very convoluted. But they like to attach these crazy terms to things. The gods are called the Falsi. The people that they brand are called the Lessi. Very stupidly similar. And then there's also Cocoon Falsi and Pulse Falsi. Cocoon Lessi, Pulse Lessi. They throw out all these terms like there's like two kinds of different police forces that are after you, but they don't really explain the difference between them. And almost every sentence, it has a new term where you're like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't care.
It seems pretty airtight to me. I think it's your problem.
Yeah, that's it. I'm just an idiot. And things will happen like the same scene where the mom falls down to her death. Snow also falls down the same spot. And he's fine. But the mom's dead. And they don't really explain why that happens. and it's. But once the story sort of, I'm like maybe 10 hours in or something, and once the story settles down to just the group getting together and trying to find this girl, it gets really good because it focuses on the personal relationships and things like they all end up branded, so they're coming to terms with having this death clock over their head and trying to save this girl, and sort of the dynamic between Lightning, who's like a no nonsense, the cool tough, she's an ex-soldier like Cloud. And then you have Snow, who's just this douchey moron, and they're constantly butting heads because they both want to save the same person. And he keeps calling her sis because he thinks they're family now, and she's like, "Don't call me that," and punches him a lot. So there are some like really good dynamics buried beneath it. It's just like this project feels like it was so big, and they'll have scenes where they'll explain the same thing maybe back to back, and you think, man, somebody should have went in there and edited that out, but I think you guys just got in over your heads. But the visuals are so good. They still look amazing, and there's so much detail everywhere you look. But most of the time it doesn't really matter like what environment you're in, because they're not really talking about the environment. So
I was going to ask like about the environment, because you spend so much time walking straight down these corridors. I was going to ask, is this linear, kind of, is the linear exploration of Final Fantasy XIII to open world exploration as QTEs are to actual hands-on gameplay? Like you're robbed of the thing you're wanting, but does it at least do it in a really entertaining way where you have plenty to focus on, and it's kind of a spectacle, and when you're going down these straight corridors, does it at least feel like you're exploring a vibrant world because of the things going on around you and the things you're walking past?
In a way, yeah, it's a good point to bring up, because I would say I'm still pretty, like, I want to see the next area because there's so much design going on, and you want to see the next batch of enemies. It's sort of like the opposite of Persona 4 Golden, where you're running down these hallways and they all look the same. These areas do look crazily different, and there's so much going on. I mean, there's so much there, you feel bad that I'm sure somebody worked months and months on a certain spot that probably no one even noticed. So yeah, I think they do a pretty good job of bringing in new things. I mean, the first one is not a corridor. It's more like you're running down sort of a road that's shooting, it's like thousands of feet up in the air. Sort of like Fifth Element style, those like air highways, but this is an actual paved one. And you're kind of jumping up and down and running into different types of enemies that are never really explained. Like, why are there these crazy monsters? Why are they fighting on the side of the good guys or the bad guys or whoever? It's so, yeah, I think they do a pretty decent job of that, where they vary it up, and then eventually you end up a little lower and there's something new that I won't spoil. I'm just sort of talking about the beginning part. Now the combat system is actually pretty well done, where they have it, you only control one character, but for the first 5 hours, you don't even really get into the meat of the combat system. Once the combat system starts going, you are in charge of what roles they play. So you can come up with your own combinations. You've got two kinds of attackers. You've got your buffers and your debuffers, and you got your medics, and then you got a class that takes a lot of damage. So once that gets going, that can be pretty interesting to play around with, and it's very, very fast paced, and the animations are beautiful, and there's numbers flying all over the place. But what happens is the crux of the gameplay becomes filling up this bar. Only one type of attacker can fill up that bar, but they do less damage. So Ravagers fill up the bar. So you want to set it so you got Ravager, Commando. Once you fill up that bar all the way, it goes bam, stagger. Now you're doing like 400% more damage. So for most bosses and big enemies, that's really the only way you can win. You have to stagger them. Once you have them staggered, you can switch over to maybe Commando, Ravager, do more damage, but the Ravager keeps that bar from going down. And then you have to find the perfect time to heal and all this kind of stuff. It's fun, it's fast paced, it's different. But the problem is that for most big bosses, it feels like there's only really one strategy to do it. And if you try any other one, you're going to get killed. And then the regular enemy fights are usually so brain dead easy. They're really, really, really boring, and there's no way to speed them up. But the boss fights, when they're challenging, they're pretty entertaining. A lot of them end up feeling a bit like puzzles. I've had a few, when I first played through it, I would get to moments where I just didn't know how to beat a boss, and I'd bang my head against the wall. And they do a great job of, if you die, they don't send you back to the save point. They send you right before usually the cutscene or the battle. And I'm trying these different combinations. Maybe I think about it, come back the next day, and like think of a new combo, maybe new equipment, because some of the equipment might give you more HP, some of the equipment might let you deal more damage. So the combat system is pretty good. Overall, the game is just a little too complex for its own good. If they would have just pared down some of the lore and some of the over-explaining, I don't mind that it's super linear. I mean, Final Fantasy VII, for example, you can go anywhere in the world, but for the first 7 or 8 towns, you have to go to them in order, really. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah. You're either limited by the vehicle you have. That's another thing. This game doesn't have any towns. You buy all your stuff from save points, which kind of robs the sit down and hang out time. Because I think with JRPGs, you're like stressed out, exploring, finding things. You make it to a town, you sit down, you relax, you stock up, you level up. This kind of lets you do that in cutscenes, but other than that, it's pretty go, go, go.
Well, there has to... You mentioned that it eventually gets to a point where it's focused more on relationships and the characters, and I know it has to build on that a lot more, because there was obviously Lightning Returns, which was a huge cult hit, and then Lightning herself became this kind of cultural phenomenon, and she was an official Louis Vuitton model for a little while, and it's still this this huge hit in the kind of this entire Final Fantasy stretch of lore and canon. Like, Lightning is one of the standout heroines of the entire franchise, so I know that things probably have to build in a really significant way for her character.
She is a great character, because she's kind of like no nonsense in a way, but they build little moments in where when she's finally, she's doing the thing of like, I don't care about anybody, but she helps people escape. And then she'll allow people to tag along, but and then she kind of actually tries to ditch some of them before they end up being buddies. But then when she finally finds her sister and sees what stage she's in, the voice actress does a great job of sort of raising the pitch in her voice, and you see her kind of get a little agitated and break because of that emotion, and eventually it makes sense that they're all together, especially because they all have to fulfill this same prophecy. So that writing is pretty good, and she never comes off as annoying. She just comes off as a beautiful, badass ass kicker leader who kind of doesn't want never ask for this Adam Jensen style, but will go along with not what needs to be done. And even though Snow can be really annoying, the douchey guy, I find him super hilarious, and the game knows that he's annoying, and Lightning will many times say what I was thinking about what he had just said, and then when she punches him in the face 3 times, it's great. So in the second one, I think they opened it up big time. They listened to a lot of what people were mad about, but I think that Lightning and Snow don't really appear in it too much, and that's why Lightning Returns was such a big deal, to bring the old fan favorite back. So I would say, don't believe the hype that it's terrible. There's still a lot of fun to be had. It still looks really good. It's really cheap. And it's just a wonder to behold. It's kind of like Waterworld by Kevin Costner. You look at this movie and you think, wow, this was the most expensive movie ever made at the time. And you built all this stuff, but all the names you gave them were really stupid. Like, here come all the bad guys. We call them smokers. I'm like, all right, that's pretty lame. They're on, like jet skis and stuff. And that's what this game is like. There's so many good ideas, and it's so well crafted and constructed. But then they go off and talk about, oh, she's a pulseless sea. That's the enemy of Cocoon. And most of the time you're thinking, what are you just talk like real people. I don't even want to call them humans, because they don't feel like humans to me. They feel like they're on some different alien planet. Yeah. There you go. You gonna play it?
I wish, I was going to say, I wish more than anything there was like one of those like PS4 versions of Final Fantasy VII where you can do triple speed and like just breeze through battles when you don't want to have to. But then again, like, it would be kind of a shame to speed through all of those incredibly richly detailed environments when a lot of the game's beauty and appeal is in those environments that you would probably just try to push through as fast as possible to get to the real meaty parts of the game.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know if I could ever make it through that initial 10-hour slog to get to the crucial character.
You know what though? It's there's character development as you go. It is a really entertaining game for the first 10 hours, even if it's like a beautiful car crash. I would recommend, I mean, you can probably get the game for $5.
Yeah.
I'd get it. I'd like, from the moment, like the first few hours are all really entertaining, even though that's basically the tutorial, just to see what the hell they were doing, that why you're being attacked by soldiers, and then you're being attacked by these like rock creatures that are splitting in half and have a face coming out with like no rhyme or reason to anything. I really recommend somebody pick it up and just go through it. It's not as bad as people think, and there are some huge defenders of the game too. But yeah, man, it's a hell of a time. Play it with a friend. All right, I think that's gonna do it. Matt, thanks for joining us. Like we said earlier, people can find you on comicbook.com/gaming, where you're covering all the news and reviews. And they can find you on Twitter at MatthewFace with 2 T's.
That is correct.
1 F. You can find me at GameThinkTalk. Nobody does. And I'm at a90skid.com. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Matt. Bye for now.
Right on.